Welcome to the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. We discuss 5 questions in about 10 minutes, and I'm very anxious and excited to share with everyone our guest today. This is Wade Millward. He is the founder of Rycor. And Wade, what would you like the people to know about Rycor?
Yeah, happy to be on here. Rycor, we're solving some major pain points in the industry, specifically the franchise industry, where we're automating insurance verification for franchisors and the insurance purchasing process for franchisees.
Wow, very good. Yeah, that's kind of a narrow little niche there, but it sounds like a critical one. So that's good work. You found a problem to solve. Good for you.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, let's jump into the questions. Our first question, share a success story of collaboration within a team.
This is interesting, right? I think collaboration is key, specifically, for leaders and facilitating collaboration. So an earlier memory for me and really getting a team to actually collaborate was a few years back when I was leading a sales and marketing team for an insurance agency. And often I think leaders feel like they have to have the answer for everything. And so they talk a lot, right, to fill space or whatever it is. And so with this team specifically, it was all about engaging with them. It was all about asking the right questions to be able to get them to collaborate and to open up. So one is getting them to feel in a position that they can suggest anything. I think that's a challenge right now because often people assume or have experience in the past that if they say something wrong or they say something that's too, kind of crazy outside the norm, that they're criticized, right? And the moment they're criticized, they put up their guard. And so as leaders, how can we expect them to ever offer another suggestion in the future if we criticize them, if we humiliate them, if we make sarcastic remarks to them? And so that's what was so great about this team is that we had this culture, right? It was all about that establishing a culture. We had a culture of being innovative and having these open discussions about anything. And there was no criticism from anybody. At the same time, we did question each other, right? We wanted to dive deep into the root issues and the root causes and how we can actually solve problems. And so that was incredible. And that's really what helped me kind of, learn about this collaboration concept and not having to have the answers, but really to facilitate discussion.
Great comments. You nailed, well, there were a couple of things that you said that I really liked. First of all, the importance of asking really good questions to help draw that out. But second, creating that environment, that culture where people can feel what we call psychological safety, but feel safe in being able to share answers without retribution or criticism. There's constructive criticism, but you are absolutely right that there are so many times that we just don't hit that very well, and it shuts everybody down and create a kind of a negative space, if you will, instead of that positive space. Great comments. Really like those. Question number 2, I hear from other leaders of teams that it can be a challenge to measure engagement within a team. What are your thoughts?
This is interesting. I think often when we think of measuring, we think of, quantitative results, right? And putting specific numbers to something. I think it can be challenging to measure engagement. I think it's more, how was the discussion? Is everybody participating? Can you actually get everybody to participate? If you have a team, you're leading a team of 8, for example, are all 8 people actually willing and able to open up? And it's challenging because you have different types of personalities, right, across the spectrum. But at the same time, you don't want to limit those people just because they have a more reserved personality. Like, we need to hear from them. We absolutely need to hear from them. And so it goes back to number 1. Create a culture of being able to be vulnerable and open, right? And if you can do that, if you can truly do that and get people to open up, then you can start to, measure engagement. I guess measuring engagement would be to understand, is everybody participating? Aside from that, I'm not a numbers guy, to be honest. So it's like, I don't have any, quantitative results around that, but that's what I would suggest is even the more reserved people, how can you help them open up, right? It's more about what you can do to facilitate that process instead of expecting them to just open up. It's different personality. Let them have their own personality. Let them be them. They don't have to be a red personality like myself, right? That's not what I'm looking for. We're looking for different perspectives, different personalities. And then, that's the measure of engagement is, can you get everybody to talk?
Great comments. Really like that. Question number 3, excuse me. Question number 3. What is, based on your experience, Wade, what is one essential characteristic of a confident leader?
This is interesting. I'm going to throw maybe a wrench in this. I'm going to say humility. Humility doesn't mix well with confidence, right? Often we think a confident leader is the guy that knows everything, that can charge ahead, that will take any type of risk. But at the same time, humility plays a critical role in leadership. Leadership is all about, again, facilitating discussion, being open, right, to suggestion, being open to criticism, because if you're not innovating, then you'll eventually die. And what I mean by that is that innovation is coupled with humility. If you're not humble to being open to suggestion, then you cannot innovate, right? And so you have to, it's really interesting, but I think that's one of the most important parts of being a leader is being humble and being willing to talk with your colleagues, being willing to have those open and honest discussions. And if you need to change something about yourself, then do it. You're not perfect.
Absolutely agree. It is a challenge because you're right. It's counterintuitive when we first think about confidence versus humility. We think that they're in competition. I agree with you completely, though, that humility, when exercised the right way, it actually builds confidence because you have the confidence to say, I want to hear from somebody else. I still can have my opinion, but I am willing to learn and gain even more confidence through the process. I think you absolutely nailed it. I love that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Question number 4, share an experience from your life of when someone made a difference in your life.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that made a difference. If we're talking professionally speaking, I'll just kind of focus on that. I will say that my dad has made a huge difference in my life, just personally, but from a professional standpoint, I have a mentor. He didn't know he was my mentor, but I just made him. He was a self-assigned mentor, Jeff Frazier. And what I love about Jeff is he spoke to me early on as if I had the potential to do anything. And I think often many of us feel that we don't have that type of potential. We grow up in a society of shame, and we often ridicule ourselves internally, and we create these internal barriers and really limit our potential. And Jeff never saw that, right? He had a very, very, well, actually, when I first met him, he was growing a company. And near the end, after 8 years, he had a very, very successful exit. And throughout this entire journey, he would talk to me as if I had the same potential as him. And when he would teach me, what I loved most is that he wouldn't give me specifics. He would say, read this book, and then go listen to this podcast, and then come back and tell me what you learned. And that's what got me on my journey of learning. And that's how I learned how to learn. So like the other day, I sent him a text, and it was back in, when I first started reading consistently. And I said, thank you so much. I started on this journey because of you. So that was huge. If you can get a mentor, don't even ask, just start asking questions.
Great comments. I appreciate you recognizing Jeff and your dad as people that have made a difference in your life. I completely agree that mentors play a critical role in helping develop people and encourage them and support them. So thank you for recognizing them. Our last question, tell us about your first job.
Baskin Robbins.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, I was 15 years old. I got a job at old Baskin Robbins, slinging ice cream, whatever, 31 flavors or something like that. Yeah, it was good times. I would end football practice. My dad would pick me up. He'd take me directly to Baskin Robbins. I'd work till 10 o'clock at night. And then he'd pick me up again. He'd bring me dinner. Like, it was incredible. I'd eat dinner at Baskin Robbins. But ever since I was a child, I had instilled in us was a very strong work ethic. And so it wasn't a question of like, or should I get a job? It was just like, when can I work? Right. And I just started working. So I was always working from an early age. I wasn't an early entrepreneur like a lot of people were. I didn't start a business as a kid, but I did at least have work ethic, and I was working consistently. So yeah, that was my first job.
That's awesome. Did you get a free scoop of ice cream every day?
Oh yeah. It was free.
That's awesome. I love ice cream. So I don't know that would be the best place for me to work, because I would
gotta be careful
every day.
Yeah.
That's great. Wade, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. How can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Wade Millward, very consistent there. Then my email is Wade, WADE, Rikor, RIKOR.io.
Fantastic. This is Sean Richards with the Team Engagement Podcast, where leaders of teams share their insights. For more ideas, go to teamengagementpodcast.com. Again, that's teamengagementpodcast.com. And we encourage you to subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube channel. Thanks so much for joining us today. Have a great day.